Hello everyone, this is Master Viktor Neustroev. Today we have our next workshop. So we do our workshops regularly every Sunday, and today the topic is coordination. So the title of the workshop sounds When Pieces Talk, Coordination Beats Material. Okay, so we are about to start. I'm going to present you 4 game fragments where coordination plays a more significant role. Last Sunday we were working on the games of Paul Murphy, and Paul Murphy was known due to his ability to develop his pieces quickly, sometimes even at the cost of material sacrifices, and because of that he got better pieces coordination and converted. So today's workshop refers to the previous workshop, so it would be great if you, for example, didn't watch the previous one, you'd better watch the recording. Anyway, so we are about to start soon. Do you have any specific questions? Are there any new people joining us today? According to what I see, no. But if you are new to this event, so please introduce yourself a little, at least tell me which country you're watching this, you're participating, and what's your current ELO. It can be any ELO, so chess.com, national rating, FIDE, up to you. Fine. So let's start. Well, first of all, you should understand that coordination of your pieces is a fundamental principle of a positional play. Well, coordination, this is a very important feature. This is how your pieces can work together to perform a certain task. In case of coordination, your pieces support each other. So they protect each other. They create pins, for example. They control key squares, especially in the center. They are looking to a certain part of the board altogether. Very often it's the king's position, the enemy king's position, and when several, if not all, when several of your pieces are looking at that direction where the enemy king is, you can start the attack on such a king. And what else? When pieces coordinate among each other, they do not interfere. This is also important. So just get your pieces crowded in one place doesn't mean make them coordinated. They shouldn't interfere each other's actions. So why coordination is better than material? Well, coordinated pieces has a hidden potential. And at a certain moment of the game, you can reveal this potential getting a decisive positional advantage or getting a strong attack, for example, where material doesn't matter. What are the most classical approaches? You can sacrifice something to activate your pieces and coordinate some of them. So, for example, it can be a pawn sacrifice for initiative. You sacrifice a pawn, like you, for example, do it in Smith-Morra Gambit, and your pieces go to the optimal positions and you pressure the enemy position, and most likely your opponent makes a mistake. You can sacrifice exchange, because if the position is closed, there are no open files for the rook. A bishop can be better than the rook, especially if this bishop is coordinated with other pieces. You can organize the attack on the enemy king. This is a very, very common scenario. We actually saw that in Paul Murphy's game last Sunday. So you can sacrifice something to open the king, even a piece even a piece to destroy the pawn cover over the enemy king, and because of that attack the enemy king, and your piece's coordination allows you to succeed of this attack. What else? You can restrict enemy pieces, so making the enemy pieces bad. So when your pieces are coordinated, they can stop the enemy pieces from doing some certain actions. In the endgame, coordination is also crucial. For example, if in the endgame the position is open, two bishops can be stronger than two other minor pieces, so they can provide you with such an advantage as extra pawn. So, for example, let's say if you have the endgame with two bishops and they have a pawn and two other minor pieces, very likely you draw the game. At least you draw the game. So, what else? Well, very often coordination decides the game, and this is what you should know. And when you decide whether to sacrifice something or not, look at how well your pieces will work all together after that. Okay, let's start with our first position. So what do you think? What black should be doing? It was semi-Slav defense, actually. A4, pawn wants to capture on b5, there is a pin, so we can push b4. On the one hand, the knight moves, and then the pawn on c4 becomes hanging. Moreover, the knight is going to e4. And of course, I don't want to trade this knight. First of all, there is a pin, but I can try g5 first. But even if so, I don't want to take, because then the rook is hanging. So what would you suggest here? So I'm open to any suggestions. What black should play? Okay, John. So perfect. John suggests to play bishop b7. That's nice. Bishop b7 makes a lot of sense. Well, bishop b7 means that the pawn is sacrificed. You can also try bishop b4, but then a takes b5 and the pawn is pinned. With bishop b7, you don't have such a situation. You do sacrifice the pawn, and maybe the rooks are traded. But, well, actually, if the rooks are traded, I think it's quite promising. So they take, you take with the queen, they take on b5, winning a pawn. But then it can be queen a5. Queen a5. Actually, no, it can be this move. It's better. Why? Because if the king moves, it's queen a4. So even after that move, the knight has to retreat. And in this position, just knight c3. Something similar happened in the game, but with rooks on the board. I'll show you. So bishop b4. Moving the king doesn't look promising. So knight goes to c3. So for the pawn, black established the coordination of their pieces. This bishop is quite active, controls e4. This bishop makes a pin. The knight is ready to join to reinforce the pin. G5 should be played in order to restrict the enemy dark squared bishop. And the queen may go to a5. Not immediately, after rook trade probably. So what would you suggest? How black should add pressure? Okay, while you're thinking, let me show you another line here. Okay, Carlos, thank you. Mark, yes, that's right. So this can be a move. And if so, I think you should try this. Yeah, then just move the queen. Okay, what else you can do? You can trade. Oh, you can trade. Yes, you can trade first, then do this. And finally do that discovered attack that I wanted. So this. Perfect. Let's go back. So knight c3. So g5. John likes castling. Well, castling is slow and you are likely to lose momentum. G5 releases the knight goes to e4 then. So there is no sacrifice because then white cannot take advantage of the pin on f6. The queen can move freely. So bishop g3. And knight e4. Knight e4 creating a pin. Reinforcing the pin. That's the main idea. So okay, just one reminder. The format of our workshop is like that. So I'm explaining something, I'm asking questions, and you can either write your answer in the chat or unmute yourself and say it. But please don't do any drawings on the screen. Don't do, try to not interrupt me or other students. Okay, so knight e4, that's right. What happens then? Well, we are threatening to win material by capturing on c3 for sure, so they have to defend it. How? With the queen, but the queen at the same time should support the rook, so that's why it's not queen c2, it's queen c1. On the one hand, they can trade on e8 and then play with the queen anywhere they want, but it doesn't make any difference. So queen c1 is playable. If we, let's say, take there, the queen is still supporting c3, so we don't take advantage of that. We can of course castle here. Let's say they play pawn to e3, then what? Queen e8, let's say. So if they trade, we can play rook a2 on the next move, rook a1. It's losing, but they can play queen c1, and this is fine too. So this bishop c4 is a mistake because after rook c8 it's just a disaster. So that's a possible plan, but black played a different move in this position. What do you think? Instead of just castling and trading rooks, what can you suggest for black? How black can coordinate all their minor pieces? That's absolutely right. Moreover, you from b6 you can also go to a4, not only to d5, but of course knight d5 is the main move. So knight b6, exactly. And if let's say it's this, well, knight d5 seems logical, but knight a4 is even better, because if they decide to take on c4 and then try to evacuate the king to f1, if you take on c3, what do you think you should do? Instead of taking on c3. Taking on c3 is good, I am sure it's good, but what else can be done? Knight takes b2 just, exactly. So they cannot take because they lose a queen, so let's say they castle and they lose there. So that's why in the game they played rook e8. Queen e8, and in order to get rid of this annoying knight, they played knight d2. So white tries to get rid of this pin, exchanging the knight on e4, the most annoying knight, while their bishops are out of the place of action. The bishop can go to e5, but then f6. I mean, one step earlier. What about this position? How black should continue? So the knight isn't hanging, because then one of the knights is pinned. So there are also two pieces defending it. Oh, John suggests a nice idea, so I didn't see it actually. It's this. Let me... d2 and g2. Yes, you can. I actually didn't look at that direction. Why? Because this bishop is better than this bishop. So what's the purpose of this trade? So king d2, because queen d2 it's queen a1. So bishop g2, this, and they are connected. So no, I don't think so. The queen always escapes. So f3 doesn't trap anything. But so we had initiative before, but when we traded here, either here or in the line that John suggested when we take here. What's the purpose? Why this position is so better? So let's say they play rook f1. Okay, we can castle, yes. I think we can probably try h5, h4, but it seems to be too risky. They are going to play knight f3 next. It doesn't trap the queen, as I said, because you can escape from there. But still, it doesn't seem that black has a significant advantage in this scenario. So, trading your good bishop for the enemy bishop ruins your coordination. Let's decide what else we should do. We can trade pieces, but if then we can take advantage of this trade. So now the knight on e4 is hanging, and most likely we have to take either on g3, d2, or c3. Which of these three options is better? Which piece to take? So knight d2. Yeah, knight d2. Why knight d2? Because the king takes, and the king loses his castling privilege. And this is already an achievement. David, did you want to say anything? Or who did want to say? Okay. Ah, yes, it keeps the ping. Thanks, Samir. King takes d2. So let's say queen takes d2 first. Then it's just this. And the only way to block is queen d1, after which they lose a knight due to this pin. So the king takes instead. Let's decide how to continue. So knight a4 looks good, but are we threatening to take on c3 then? No. Our pieces are active, so the knight goes to d5 or a4, but maybe this is not what we need at that moment. How else we can improve the coordination of our pieces? There is nothing wrong with castling, let's say, but there is rook d1, then maybe they play h4. I don't think you need to castle, actually. If you choose between castling and king e7, I would prefer king e7, but that's not the point of our main idea. So the main idea is to get these pieces coordinated. Bringing the rook works, but bringing the rook seems to be too slow. They can develop. In the game, black continued with queen a2. Why did they play such a move? Well, there is a pin, and if they want to unpin and attack the queen, they have to move the king. But every time they move the king, queen moves, and this is a check. So, for example, king e3, then what? King e3 is a stupid move. So what? Queen b3. Yeah, queen b3 looks good. Anything else instead of queen b3? Something more. Knight d5, yes, but then knight takes d5. Yes, but he plays f3 and tries to escape. Yeah, I think it's bishop to c3. It's better, because queen takes, it's knight d5 fork. But if pawn takes, it's still knight d5. And the king... Yes, the king falls under a discovered attack. So it should be losing. Okay, fine. So king c2 or king d1. In the game it was king d1, which allows queen b3 to be played. And after queen b3, what happens? If they move the king again to a dark square such as this, it's better to attack knight a4 from that way, and then we take on c3. If they do with king d2, still the same move, And now we are threatening to take there, retreat back, and still win this knight. Maybe there is something else also. Fine. So queen c2, fine. But how to solve this issue? It seems that they are going to trade our most active pieces. However, our pieces coordination should still provide us with a decisive advantage. Our only task is to find how exactly. So take on c3, they take with the pawn, and what then? Yeah, knight a4 looks strong, so let's go over this scenario. Knight a4. So if they take, what happens then? Okay, maybe they don't take. But if they don't take, then knight c3 is coming. So it seems like they must. And let's say... And if this move, then b2 immediately. Ah, bishop f4. Okay, bishop f4, but then I play e3. b2, bishop d3. Ah, actually, maybe I can do that strategy, but then I am down exchange. So let me try bishop d3 then. King d2 without capturing the queen. Yes, let's go over that line. So this king d2 right away. Yeah, I think it's even better. It's even better. Okay, so knight a4 probably is not the best way to play. But I like the Samir's idea. However, how to make this idea working? Okay. But you don't have a passed pawn then, so you'd better play bishop e4 right away. So how does it work? It provokes a trade because there is a pin, and with bishop f4 we reinforce the pin. They take, we take, and it's actually game over. The game continued with e3 and b2, and after that they resigned because what they can do? Bishop b5, king e7, and king d2. But this is how they lose a rook for free. If, let's say, instead of e3 they played king c1, it's just knight c4, and b2, b1 is unstoppable. So you see, in this position, in this game, black coordinated all their pieces except this rook. However, that was enough, because the enemy pieces were doing nothing, these three. So this is how just a pawn sacrifice may provide you with a strong initiative. Once all of your, or most of your pieces participate in the place of action and create threats that your opponent has to defend against, instead of following his plan and developing his pieces. Okay, fine. So let's continue. We have this position. Oh, that's a really nice... there was a very nice tactical combination here, which is... well, maybe the first move is obvious, but the combination itself is not. Absolutely not. So white to move. White has a pin, but white has a better pieces coordination because all of them, except the rook on a1, can participate, can do all one thing all together. So when your pieces can perform one certain function or one certain action, they coordinate. They are coordinated, and you can take advantage of it immediately. Okay, so white to move. What white should do? What are your suggestions? how white should play here. Okay, so we have some suggestions. Bishop f7 is one of the lines. And if king takes f7, knight e5 works perfectly well. It is a check. Well, let me make this moves on the board. Bishop takes, king takes, knight e5 check, knight takes e5, bishop e5 check, then this bishop is lost. Looks great. But the biggest drawback of this combination is this. Knight takes knight, and then how you continue the attack and what did you sacrifice your bishop for. So there should be something else. For example, what? Okay, so it's 95. Is it 95? And if bishop takes d1, we take on f7. Yes, actually it's 95, but how this move works, all these pieces can be coordinated together. So the queen does a discovered attack. That allows white to gain a tempo, because the bishop should take the queen. If not, if knight e5, let's say, which it seems was the best move, but it's not obvious for players playing this game over the board. Bishop f7, actually, yeah, bishop f7 works. King d7. But then you have two pieces hanging. So probably you have to play bishop e6 move. And if bishop takes, you take there. And if the king takes, yeah, the king takes, then queen d2, and what you threaten is this. But maybe it's not enough. So bishop f7 doesn't look good. Bishop b5, and now if well, you don't sacrifice anything, so if they play c6, they're still threatening too. But this time queen d2 is enough. If they take on b5, you take on e5. You may correct me and say that, well, there is an intermediate move, right? But we also have an intermediate blockade, which allows us to save material. So the queen goes, well, I doubt this is a good move, because then it's another attack and the queen has to leave this diagonal. So I think the queen goes that way, bishop a4, this, c4 maybe. And after all exchanges, the position is playable. Queen d2 takes, pawn takes, bishop goes to a4. Black is, no, it's even. But the bishop pair should offer some advantage for white. However, in the game, black of course took on d1 because they didn't see checkmate. So knight f7. Well, what was the other line? Bishop f7. Okay, bishop f7. Let's calculate it. The king goes, let's say, there, and then I don't know how to continue, because bishop g5 fails, there is this. And if you first decide to trade, then the king escapes. So bishop f7 doesn't work. Knight f7, such a move attacks the queen. The queen moves. Where? e7. Okay. Bishop g5. Okay, so fine. Let me show you what. Well, actually, bishop c7 is a better move. If queen f6 in the game, Rudolf Spielmann here just took on d1 because he didn't find the continuation. But the move that he should play should be this. It seems like this is just a blunder because they can just deliver a check and win a tempo. Right, but how do they continue after that? So we are threatening with knight d6, king e7, and rook f7 mate. Of course, they can sacrifice the queen for the knight and avoid getting checkmated, But then it's just a technically losing position for black. They are down 2 pawns. Maybe they win one, but the white piece's activity decides the game. So after king h1, how black should play to defend their position? Knight d6, there is no way to defend against knight d6. Something like that, maybe. Then the queen is trapped. So how the queen is trapped? I wonder if, well, knight d6 doesn't work here, but bishop f5 works. Yes, but after c3, the queen escapes to e3, so that's why I prefer bishop e5 instead. And if queen e3 in this position, it seems that there is, well, now maybe there is knight d6 and rook d1, and then I'm threatening to trap the queen with these moves. So it still works. Okay, so the moves I should analyze. 695. Interesting. Castle and rook f8. So let's say castle. Just rook a d1. There is a threat of a discovered attack, but right now it's not clear where. But look, so 2 bishops and 2 pawns compensate the queen. So that's why even if there is no attack, no way to win more material, it's still playable for white. That's why white doesn't risk much. So if let's say knight f6, then bishop here, queen moves, and just bishop takes f6 with knight a5. Moving the queen there would lose the game. So how does it lose the game? Rook f3 or rook f6? Yeah. Rook f3, queen e2. Oops. Queen e2, I mean. No, maybe it's not rook f3. It's not trapped. So rook d1 is the move I see. No, rook f6 fails. They just take, and then what? If you take, they take on f7. I think it should be bishop f6, or this move first. So the queen goes, d2 is the only square available for the queen. Bishop c3, queen c2. No, it's not trapped yet. Okay, anyway, let's do it. This, knight goes to e5, king goes to h8, and in this position, yes, bishop b3 traps, because I didn't realize we defended with the knight. Yes, exactly. Fine, so that's why it's not a possibility. So here, the queen is in the danger. So castle doesn't work. Rook f8 maybe is better because the king is not trapped in the corner. But even if so, it's still the same strategy. Knight b6 trying to get rid of this and capture on f7. But bishop b5 wins the game. So now what? The king moves. Bishop d6, you can take there and then play check. Yeah, you can just take there. So rook takes. And let's decide how to continue. Knight g5, king e7. So knight g5, king e7. Ah, of course. Right. To be able to play knight e6. Fine. This is how it works. Okay, so, well, maybe they have to sacrifice the queen there for 2 pieces, but then white is 2 pawns up. Fine, so rook f8, rook d1, knight b6, bishop b5. Yes, they have to sacrifice the queen here, because king e6, just bishop takes f8. Okay, so that's right. This is what should happen. Instead, in the game, it was played rook a d1, and rook a d1 is not a losing move. White is still winning due to their pieces coordination. Even without a queen, they can still win. So if you are well, the engine thinks it's +2, but if bishop c7, it's +5 or so. Instead of this move, if bishop c7 was played. Okay, what did happen in the game? Rook f8 in this position. Finally, white found this move, bishop c7. Queen takes b2 because the queen was under attack, and again, white loses some of their advantage. So what would you suggest for white in this position? How they should continue? If it was Paul Murphy playing, I'm sure he would find. But it was Rudolf Spielman. And he played a possible move, but he lost most of his advantage with this move. So what do you think? Where should we move our pieces and which piece to move? Well, obviously the candidate move is yeah, knight d6 and knight f5, this transfer. Yeah, this transfer was crucial because the king can only move to e7, then this works. Yes, and king e8 back, which seems the only king's move because I don't want to move the king to the open file. Then it's knight g7. Okay, yeah, first let's do this. Yes, let's do this and then drive the queen away, and then it's knight g7. Okay, this is how it works. So that's why they can sacrifice, and once we take with a pawn, we have enough material. So it's a rook, bishop, and pawn to compensate the queen, but in addition, the king is weak. Check. King moves, king f8, and after that, white has a significant advantage. Full material compensation and also pieces activity. He played rook f2 and lost his advantage. Knight f6, bishop f5, queen moves. Now knight d6 to not let black to trade the rook for 2 minor pieces. King moves, and after rook df1, white is nominally better, but they agreed to a draw. So what do you think? Well, white is still better, and white should continue here. Think it's knight g4 should be played in this position. If you take, they take there. No, well, if you take there. The back rank is weak. So rook f8, rook f8. And then knight e5 just. This is where black should be fine. Queen b1, rook f1. So I think this is enough. The knight has to move. There is also this coming. So this is where the queen is active, and because of no, queen b1 is not checkmate. How can it be a checkmate? The rook goes back. No, but instead of capturing, rook f7 works. And then d7, then you can save your pieces. So where the king goes, let's say to d8, then knight b7 with a check, and it's possible to move the pieces away, even bishop g3. And there is also rook f1 later. So it's okay. So white should be much better in this position. Maybe instead in this position d4, but then again with knight g4 they defend the position. So d takes c5. D takes c5, they can probably take there and then there. So knight g4, rook f8, this and then this. And after queen c5 there is bishop d4. However, the queen takes on d6 and our rook is pinned. So d4 doesn't work. So rook df1 should be played, and if knight g4, it's rook f7. And this is how white should play for a win. But if only in time they played bishop c7. So in this position, if only they played bishop c7, that would work perfectly well. Same thing would work in case of queen e7. So queen e7 still there, and knight d6 forces black to sacrifice the queen. So in this position, it's hard to make a good move. I don't even see a better option rather than castling. And so what would you play here? Bishop d6, and if queen e8, you just take on f8. Yeah, I think it works. Or you can just take on d1 and maintain pressure. So you mean... Yes, yes, I understand. But what they're gonna do is probably this. You should move the bishop away. Yeah, we can. You mean 96? 96, okay. Okay, so what do I have left? b5 or knight b6? Yes, it's a bit unpleasant. So bishop d6 is a good move, I'm sure. So queen h4 maybe should be played, because from on h4 the queen is too far. But then rook d1 can be played. Or... no. How is it possible? You don't have a queen. No, if you had a queen on g8, then yes. But without a queen, it's not a smothered mate. Okay, fine. Fine. Bishop f8. Bishop f8, yes. So bishop f8, rook f8. And then rook d1. Yeah. Or rook d1 can be played in this position after this. Yes, rook d1 can be played at any moment, and there is a significant compensation due to pieces activity. Okay, so here we come with the third example. The third example, black to move. So black has an attack. So look at these pieces. They are targeting the king side. So f3, g2, this f2. The queen is looking on that direction. The rook is attacking g2. But the problem is that the queen has to move. I mean, the queen is under attack, so black should somehow deal with this issue. If black trades queens, then black should forget about the attack. They cannot capitalize on it. So what should you do as black in this position? Your pieces are already coordinated, so your task is to find how to realize this advantage, this coordination. Okay, rook g2 was suggested by John, so let's go over it. Rook g2, king g2. Then I think John wanted to play rook g8. The king goes to h1, and then I don't see a continuation. Well, knight f2, but the bishop is here covering, so it doesn't work. That's why it's not rook g2. Oh, knight g5. Okay, so this, then knight g5. Ah, no, after a check. So this, and then knight g5. Then, well, bishop g5 is interesting. I also wonder if bishop b6, knight f3. And then you can move it and checkmate, maybe. Do I have a more simple decision? Okay, let me take with my bishop then. And then I take on b6. And then what? White is a rook up. So it fails. Okay, so in which position? After knight g5? The starting position. Okay, fine. Yeah, take your time. This is where calculation is required. We definitely don't want to play with the queen because there, well, we want we So bishop h2 may work if king takes h2. Bishop h2, king takes h2, queen d6 can be played. This is the idea. But they can also try something like that to make interference because it hangs to the rook. So now the rook should be sacrificed. And this is where I'm not 100% sure what to do. Because, yeah, there are some discovered attacks, but what for? So let's say this. So king doesn't need to move. f3 should be played. Even knight f3 is not bad. But f3 and the king escapes. So that's why I don't think it's the solution. Knight g5 right away. Interesting move. However, I'm absolutely sure it fails. So knight g3, let's say bishop takes. This. So no, knight g5 fails. Rook a g8. Thanks, Carlos. Yes, this is the move I wanted to find. I wanted you to find. So then what? This obviously is losing because it's a checkmate in just a few moves. Rook g2, king h1. And now it's just a matter of taste. I would say this is better. Rook takes h2, yes, thanks. Rook takes h2 is better because once the knight takes, which is the only move, knight f2 is a double check and checkmate. However, if you want, you can do it in a different move order. Knight f2 first. If they take with a rook, it's checkmate with rook g1. If they take it with the bishop, it's a checkmate with rook h2 because now the knight is pinned. So rook a g8 tells us that bishop b6 is a blunder. That's why white decided to play this move, and this is how they kept the queens on the board. So what do you think? How you should proceed? I'm sure it's possible to win even without queens. I mean, even without any help of this queen. What about knight takes f2? So knight takes f2. I think it's okay. Knight takes f2, rook takes f2. And if you play queen e3, it's bishop g4. It seems to be fine. So for white, they have enough defense here. I know that bishop h2 is coming, but just queen h5 to stop it. So knight f2 doesn't look promising. I mean, still it offers a playable position. Trade queens and knight f2. So trade queens, then knight f2. So how does it work? It's just rook f2 and g2 is protected. What about knight f2? Well, but we did discuss it. Knight f2, it's rook f2. Rook g2. Okay, Georgiev suggests to play rook g2. Rook g2 looks good. Rook g2. So if king h1, it's a checkmate with rook h2, of course. So that's why they have to take this rook on g2. And then in order to checkmate, we may continue with a knight move. So knight d2. Why is it so important to play with a knight? Because, well, we threaten with this. For example, if now our queen is taken, it's rook here, king takes. And then it's a checkmate in a few moves, like that. Because with two bishops and the rook, we can offer such a checkmate. So that's why they cannot take. Maybe they have to take on d2 first. No, it's loses because of the same mate. Okay, now instead they should try to block it with bishop f3, let's say. What's wrong with bishop f3? How do we punish it? There are several ways, actually. Yeah, bishop f3, and it's almost the same scenario. But knight f3 works too. King h1 and knight h2. Now this becomes a mating threat. So if again they decide to take there, it's bishop g2, king here. So we can move the bishop, but if we play with a knight, it's even better. Okay, so that's why they didn't find anything else but decided to block. If they play f3, which may seem like a better move, it's just queen takes e3. It's pinned, so how to play? This? No, it's over. So king h1? Yeah, king h1. But if king h1, I think it's over anyway. How should we progress? What do you think? What's the best way to play? So our king is not in a danger. That's why we may play a move even if it's not a check. Take the rook. Take the rook, they take our queen. So this is what I prefer to avoid. Okay, so if you want to take the rook, then first you need to move the queen with a tempo and then take the rook, because f4 is a disaster. Okay, so he cannot. I can also take with my rook if I want. Oh, queen h6, this is protected, and this is a mating threat. They cannot do anything. Okay, fine. So that's why they sacrifice the queen here. Bishop d5, and they still cannot take the queen because of the same issue. Checkmate with rook g2, rook h2, rook h1. So this maneuver. That's why they took on d5, queen b2, and it's completely losing. So there is no full compensation for the queen. They played that move. Well, on the one hand, they could try this, but then it's bishop h2, knight f1 with a check. Or even just queen e5 with a tempo. Because if f4, it's bishop take, queen takes bishop. And then queen takes rook. So bishop d2, queen e1, the bishop moves, but after bishop h2, it's just game over. King moves or takes, and queen f1, and that's it. This is how the game ended. So in this example, the attack on the king side was so strong due to the pieces coordination that even the whole queen could be sacrificed. Okay, so where? Rook takes g2, knight f1. In which position? Where you blunder it. So can you please specify where you blunder it? Okay, so where you blundered the queen. No, not that. Where I played queen h6. So knight f, queen e3, king moves, knight f1, knight e3. You wanted to take on g2 first and then take there. Yes, you can do so, but are you sure that it's winning? I'm not. I'm not sure if it's winning. Maybe it's better, but not winning. Anyway, so we have our last example to go over, the game between Paul Keres and Laszlo Jabo. Probably you may remember this game because you saw the final position, because this game is very often a part of tactical manuals. Anyway, so before we continue with our last example, let me remind you that our workshops are free. However, if you enjoy such a content and you would like to support it, you can donate using PayPal or Wise. So let me share the links with you and explain how it works. For example, here you go over this, you go through this link, click this button, donate, a pop-up window appears. What you just need is to enter the amount that you want to donate, after which you click PayPal button, it redirects you to your PayPal account, and then your money are automatically sent to my account. Through Wise, there is also a possibility to send a transfer through Wise. Just use this link, enter your Wise account and use this link. It's easier. Okay. Well, if you have any other questions, you can always message me. Let's continue. Let's continue with this position. So it's white to move. What white should do? So let me also share my email. If you have any questions, you are welcome, especially if you are looking for individual or group lessons. So tricksofchess@gmail.com. White to move. Well, white has a lot of moves here. Well, black attacks on b2, potentially. I mean, right now, black threatens to take the pawn on a5. So if you decide to play something like that or like this, it's queen e5. It should be something else. Any suggestions? Queen h6, queen e5. Okay, there is another nice suggestion. Rook g7. Yeah, rook g7 and queen g5. Rook g7, king g7, queen g5. But how does it work? So the king escapes and what? There is queen e5. Now you can play rook d7. Yes, you can, but how do you succeed with the attack? So, well, rook e1 is the most simple move. The rook e1, you defend there. The game could continue with this move. However, it's completely fine if you sacrifice the pawn on b2, because there is no way they can attack your king. This is always a blunder. Now they have to react with g6, but then you play h5. And it seems that the position is winning. If you want to cover the king, it can be also done with this move. Sack the bishop on g6 and you are winning. This didn't happen in the game. Paul Keres decided to play rook d7, so he sacrificed the exchange to maintain his initiative. Because if there is no knight, then e5 is not hanging. And here he just continued playing like it's just an ordinary game. What he should do instead is queen g5, g6, h5. Yeah, knight e4 is a plan, but don't blunder checkmate on e1. So then what? Well, queen f6, h6 is a plan, so f5 should be played. And then it seems that, well, can we do this? Not sure. If we do this, it's queen e5. And after this move, it's this, and the king is well hidden. So that's why I think that en passant should be played, and then black can trade queens. But the endgame looks really favorable. Even without exchange, it looks favorable. There is one pawn as a compensation. There is also a possibility of check, or the knight can go to c5, the rook can go to the other side to attack weaknesses. So white should be winning in this endgame. But he played like it is an ordinary game, just bishop d3, to bring more resources to the place of action. Black could save the game with rook b4 move, so threatening to take on h4. If queen g5, g6 works. And if, let's say, h5, then what do you think? The queen is still here, so queen d8. And yeah, that's the move. Queen d8, and then queen h4 can be played. So black should be fine here. But black didn't find rook before with queen d8 idea. They played h6. Obviously, queen h6 is not a good move because of queen e5. This is what both players understood. And white just continued with queen f4, threatening with queen f6. Now queen d8 doesn't work. There is queen h6 and the problem exists. g6, bishop takes g6. So how to play? Black decided it's king f8, but king f8 is already a losing move. What do you think? How white realized their pieces coordination this time? So it can be rook g7 like you suggest, but rook g7, king g7, then what? queen f6, I assume. But what about king g8 move? So this is the position that you could meet in chess manuals. Yeah, then queen h6. Okay, fine. That's right. It's rook g7. They cannot ignore it because what else they can do? Rook e7, it's queen here with an attack on a queen h8 mate. So rook g7, king takes. Queen f6. In the game, it was king f8, after which bishop g6, it's over. So queen f7 is a threat. It's unstoppable. Rook e7 is the only defense, but then there is queen h8 mate. That's why king f8 is a wrong move. King g8 should be played, but even king g8 loses due to queen h6 that John suggested. With queen h6, we threaten a very typical mating pattern. So let me illustrate it. Yes, that's right. So it's bishop h7. Yeah, king here, queen h7, king, queen f7 then. So what they can do, it's only f5 that stops, but en passant, and there is no way to bring the queen to defend here. So g7 is checkmating threat, so they can sacrifice the rook, which we take. We are, well, we're still down material, but how to continue defending? It's still the same issue. Right now, queen h7 is an immediate threat. No, I think it's over. So king f7, let's say. Queen h7, king f6. So how to play g4 or knight e4? Knight e4, I think. Yeah, knight e4 works well because after this move there is a skewer. And there is no better move. And if it was this, it's bishop g6 mate. So that's why king g8 doesn't really help. Let's look again at what happened in the game. So black is under the attack, but they initiate their own attack on the queen side. However, right now queen e5 is a threat where white may lose a pawn, and at the same time black defends g7, their main weakness. Well, white could just defend it with rook e1 and continue playing slowly, but he decides to sacrifice exchange to improve the coordination of other pieces left. And then he plays bishop d3, after which black has to find the only defense, such as rook b4. He didn't, played h6, and after white brought their queen closer to the king, a tactical strike became possible, and this is how they won the game. Or this is how the game could end, with bishop h7, bishop g6, and queen h7, queen f7 mate. Okay, fine. So today we were trying to, I was trying to illustrate how to take advantage of pieces coordination, how pieces together, even not all of them, but some of them, even without a queen, they can work together and provide you with a significant advantage and allow to attack on the king. However, my favorite example is the first one, where just at the cost of the pawn, we could improve our pieces coordination and created problems. So if you remember, it was bishop b7 in this position, sacrificing the pawn on b5, but bringing the other piece to the attack and then adding pressure to the enemy position. So remember, coordination is better than material. Well, it depends on how much material you sacrifice. If, for example, black sacrifices the queen in this position, black loses the game. But a pawn exchange, completely fine. Okay, so we are done for today. Do you have any questions? The next workshop will be next Sunday. If no questions, then let's finish for today. So thank you for coming. See everyone next Sunday.